Good morning, everyone. I'm Victoria Beale, and I am delighted to be interviewing the wonderful Drew Ellis from We Are Like Minds today. Drew, I think we can use the tag, is the Expo King. We had the Expo Queen last week, and now we have the Expo King, or Prince, whichever you prefer, Drew.
Prince,
lovely to meet you. Expo Prince, there we go.
Good to meet you too, Victoria. Yeah, so pleasure to be here and talking to everybody.
Fabulous. Well, lovely to have you. So what we're going to talk about today is really how it all started, Drew. You've got a very interesting past that I think our viewers and listeners would like to know about. So do you want to walk us through how you got to where you are in to We Are Like Minds as such, your career history to date?
So I went to school, of course, like most other people, was deemed to be reasonably good at art, and so ended up applying for a foundation course at Manchester School of Art to learn what type of design or art or fine art sculpture I wanted to go into. While I was there, I met two third-year students. One was a guy called Peter Saville, who at the time was designing all the factory records, sleeves and posters, and another designer called Malcolm Garrett, who was doing a lot of record sleeve work as well for bands like Magazine and the Buzzcocks. And this really enthused me because I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, whether I was going to go into fine art or whether I was going to go into design. So I decided to go into design and applied to a London college, LCP, or now LCC, part of the University of the Arts, and did a graphics degree. And it was during my graphics degree, I spent a lot of time in the photography department learning about how to take photos, set up studios. And as part of the course, I had to write a dissertation. And so I thought, well, I'll write it on record sleeve design, as I'm following these two guys who are now producing, really iconic record sleeves. Went to interview both of them, and my flatmate had spent the summer working in a pub in Maida Vale, and he wasn't very good at maths. And the publican said to him, "Listen, Lindsay, I'm really sorry, mate, but I've got to let you go. You keep getting the till wrong. What do you do?" And he said, "Well, I'm an art student." He said, "Oh, if you're an art student, go and speak to that guy at the end of the bar. He's in that world. He might give you a job." And it was one of the partners in a company called Hypnosis, who were a very famous record sleeve design company, who floated the pig over Battersea Power Station for Pink Floyd and designed Dark Side of the Moon, and worked for Paul McCartney. And so he ended up as a summer holiday job as their assistant designer. So when I came back to the flat for the next year's work at LCP, he said, "You'll never guess who I've been working for." And I said, "Oh, that's amazing. I'm writing my dissertation on record sleeve design. Can I interview them?" So he said, "Yeah." So he introduced me. And during the interview, they said, "So you do the same thing as Lindsay? You're an art student?" And I said, "Yeah, that's right." They said, "Fantastic. We're really busy. Can you come in tomorrow and help us out?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." And I ended up staying 3 years, working on record sleeves for Led Zeppelin and Paul McCartney, Pink Floyd, all sorts of different artists, which was amazing. And we were in 6 Denmark Street in Soho, in Tin Pan Alley, and the Sex Pistols lived upstairs. So I used to pass the Glenn Matlock on the stairs, wearing his "I Hate Pink Floyd" t-shirt, thinking, I hope to God Pink Floyd aren't coming in today. And they might bump into him. So Hypnosis turned into a film company, Greenback Films. So we did some of the very first pop promos for artists like Paul Young. We did Wherever I Lay My Hat, Nick Kershaw, lots of those sort of 80s artists. But I didn't really enjoy the film industry because it was very up and down. You'd be working crazy hours for 4 weeks and then there wouldn't be any work. And obviously being freelance, that was having a huge impact on my income. So I said to one of the partners, "Look, I'm going to start a sleeve design company." And he said, "That's a great idea because we don't do those anymore. So you do that and you recommend the bands that you work with for the videos and will recommend the people that still ring us up for record sleeve design, send them to you. And so I suddenly had a portfolio of bands that was a fantastic start. So I founded Icon in 1992. We built it up to a big warehouse on Farringdon Road, 3,500 square feet, and opened a studio in LA, in Studio City, to service the American music market. And then in 1989, I sold it to a UK PLC. So, I mean, I'd never had a proper job, as my father would call it. So this was my sort of first proper job as the youngest group board director at a UK PLC, which was a fantastic learning curve for about 4 years. But I found it very frustrating trying to get anything through. You always had to write board reports. And I remember the internet coming along in 1993, and I just got it. I don't know why particularly, but I thought that we could all become magazine publishers and we wouldn't have to pay for the print or the distribution, or we could all be a TV station if the broadband could improve, or a radio station, in fact. And so I took the idea to the group board, and the message came back, no, the internet's a fad, it'll never take off. So I thought about this for another sort of 3 or 4 months and decided that they were completely wrong. I'd obviously got a bit of a cushion having sold the business, so I resigned. I remember coming home, my wife was sitting on the steps with our baby daughter on her knee, and she said, "You're home early, darling. Where's the car?" I went, well. So after that shock, I founded Eye2Eye, my digital agency, in the spare room with a little Mac SE. And I used to go into London, into Covent Garden, into a sort of tech room where you could have a SideQuest disk in those days and finish your designs and put them all onto the SideQuest disk. And then I'd take the SideQuest disk over to the record company and say, that's the artwork. So there was no more drawing tables and ink. It was all digital. And then founded Eye2Eye as a business in Belgravia, in an amazing building in Bradbrook House, and built that up, building some of the first websites. So we built the intranet for the House of Commons and did all the branding for the House of Commons and the House of Lords. We built the intranet the database for First Tuesday, which was the group that pulled together all of the .coms in that huge .com rush up to 2000, and built the global website for Arthur Andersen. And in fact, built Amazon effectively for a book company, bookstore called Blackwell's Books. Wow. And we called it Head Filler. And you could buy your books, and you could also buy CDs and DVDs. And your parents could put a sum of money into the account and then decide how much their child could spend on books and how much they could spend on CDs and DVDs, sort of downtime. But of course, Amazon came along very shortly afterwards and ate their lunch and became what it is today. But that was an amazing experience to build an e-commerce, one of the first e-commerce platforms out there. Then, of course, the .com crash comes. I downsize. We end up moving down to Devon. And in 2009, the social media revolution began. And so I decided that this was the next big thing after the internet, and wanted to do a talk in a pub for 20 odd people about the impact of social media. And this young guy had approached me saying that he wanted to do this as what we used to call a tweet up. And I said, well, tweet ups are a bit sort of passé. Why don't we give it some content, find a speaker, and then sell tickets and see how it goes. And then the next time I meet him, he said, I found 2 speakers. So I said, okay, that's a bit longer than 20 minutes in a pub. He says, yeah, and they're flying in from the US. And I went, what do you mean? He said, oh yeah, they're the leaders in social media, and the US are much further ahead than we are. So I thought we'd fly them over and put them up in a hotel. And I said, who's paying for this? And he said, well, we are. And I said, well, I think we need to find some sponsorship and structure this a little bit better, and we'll do a half a day. So we found a venue, we did half a day. I found a couple of speakers from London that I knew worked for the BBC and Sky. So we had some great content, and 220 people turned up. It was absolutely amazing. So we covered the costs through the sponsorship, and we'd actually made money. So I said to him, this is a business, why don't we do it again? And we'll run a whole day. And we did. And then we ran 2 days. And then Nokia sponsored us to go to Helsinki and run one over there. My business partner then decided he didn't want to do it anymore and walked away from it. And so I was left with my eye-to-eye business, which was my day job, and this annual event that I would put together in Exeter. And then I was approached in London by a private members club to run a series of business breakfasts. And that ended up as being 3 days a month. So I would come into London every week, deliver the breakfast, meet with potential clients or existing clients for eye to eye. And then at September, October time, we do our annual festival. And about 350 people would come from all over the country. At one point, I think we had somebody from 7 different continents, people from 7 different continents coming. So it was, a huge success. And then COVID.
I know.
Which, upset the apple cart a bit for live events.
Yes.
So I very quickly pivoted online, which is something that obviously I'd always wanted to do and knew how to do, but had just never had the sort of impetus to make it happen. And I researched all the platforms that were out there, settled on one, and started the Lockdown Festival in March, and curated 6 speakers a day, every day for 5 days, which was fairly exhausting. And they had an hour each, sort of half an hour to talk, and then a half an hour Q&A with the audience, with the online audience. We were supported by Amaze Bank, one of the new challenger banks, which was fantastic. Very grateful to them. And it was a huge success. We had 600 people from all over the world, which sort of blew my mind. I thought, well, of course they're going to be, we're on the internet, it's a global thing. And instead of seeing people from the Southeast or the Southwest, we had people from Alaska, Mumbai, Tokyo, Switzerland. And it was just a fantastic day, 5 days. So we ran it again in April. And again, a similar sort of audience, but slightly decreased in the number of people as people were starting to come out of lockdown. And so then I was thinking, well, I can't call the next one the Lockdown Festival. What am I going to do about my business breakfasts, which we held in the club? One of the clubs is the screen behind me, is the Court in Soho. And so I launched Business Breakfast TV on July the 1st. And every Wednesday we have a show, 8 o'clock until 9:30 with a fantastic speaker. And people come in about 8 to 8:30 and network over a cup of coffee. And then we listen to the talk for 20 minutes from 8:30. And then we have a Q&A session, a live Q&A session with the speaker. And the benefit for the speaker, obviously, is it's a pre-recorded talk. So it goes up online, it's up on our YouTube channel, it's up on our website. So they get a lot of long tail benefit from that, as do the sponsors, obviously. So that's where we are today. I run a weekly Business Breakfast TV. And then in order to replace the Ideas Festival that we physically ran in Exeter, we've launched the Great British Business Expo, which is launching on November the 18th. And people can take digital booths and run workshops. And we're marketing that with some fabulous partners like the IOD. We've just realized that it's actually during Entrepreneurship Week. So we're partnering with the entrepreneurship groups there, and bringing in lots of sponsors. So it should be, an amazing day. I see it as sort of the digital equivalent of the Great Exhibition, if you like. So instead of being in Crystal Palace, we're on a crystal screen.
I think it's absolutely fascinating. Your career to date, you've literally you've evolved through the .com revolution, the social media revolution. You are so lucky and blessed to be the generation, the age you are, to have done that. I'm a little bit behind you on my own journey, my own personal journey, but for anyone listening or watching this interview, it's just totally fascinating, because what is the most fascinating thing about everything you've said is, for somebody who was so young to have been really successful, what kept driving you to do more stuff when probably you didn't really need to? I don't know that. But
I don't know. I think it was just a passion for doing what I do. You know, I had some very lucky breaks, you know, and people say, you know, the harder you work, the luckier you get. But, you know, I could have turned the job down at hypnosis. I could have said, oh, no, I need to focus on my studies. I can't possibly moonlight for you guys. But I didn't. I wanted to work for them. And I found that work really interesting and inspiring. And I was meeting lots of interesting people. I was then asked by the girlfriend of one of the partners to design some T-shirts for the fashion designer that she was working for. And I said, yeah, sure, I could come up with something. And she gave me these slogans. And I thought, they need to be powerful, like a Sun headline. You know, they'd always have those great big block capitals, wouldn't they, on the Sun headline? And so I did Save the Whale and Choose Life. And the fashion designer was Catherine Hamner. And so those T-shirts got a lot of publicity. And then the music industry adopted them. And you had George Michael saying, choose Wham! And Frankie Goes to Hollywood saying, you know, Frankie Says Relax. So these T-shirts became a kind of iconic design meme, as we would now call it, on the internet. I mean, obviously there was no internet then.
Oh, that's right.
It became a fashion meme, and is still going today. You know, Catherine still designs T-shirts in the same style, in the same typeface, and some of those T-shirts are in the V&A collection. I went the other day to a fashion exhibition there, and there was my Stay Alive in '85 T-shirt, which we did for the AIDS campaign. So it was a red T-shirt with Stay Alive in '85 written on it. And if anyone's got any of those T-shirts, the original ones I'd actually signed. There's a little code at the bottom, because the original T-shirts had a patch on them, which had Choose Life in as many languages as we could fit on the patch. And at the bottom, I put a code, AWE, which is my initials, /4 / the date that I actually did the artwork, and then the number 4 KHL for Catherine Hamner Limited. And that became very useful when somebody ripped off the designs commercially, and she was able to then take them to court, because the idiots had just photographed the shirt and then printed the photograph on their shirts. So we were able to sue them successfully. So yeah, you know, little things like that. I guess, you know, Dave Gilmour giving me space in Britannia Row was another lucky break. When the lease ran out on my studio in Denmark Street before we moved to Farringdon Road, he said, well, I've got space in the recording studio. Why don't you come in here and just rent one of the rooms upstairs and carry on, you know, designing. So we did that. And through that, I met all sorts of artists who would come and record downstairs in the recording studio and end up designing record sleeves for them. So, you know, I think you've got to take advantage of the situations that you find yourself in. You know, that at no point did I ever consider stopping, and I still don't. No. You know, I'm in the middle of raising funds for a startup right now, which is, again, going back to the music industry, something that the music industry really, or the entertainment industry as a whole, really need help with, because nobody can do live gigs anymore. No. Because there's no audience, and some of the venues obviously are really, well, all the venues are suffering. So we're building something to help alleviate that.
Well, I know what that is, but we're not going to talk about that right now.
We're not going to talk about that because
we'll wait.
stealth beta. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a fascinating, and we will be doing a separate interview about that when you're ready. But I think some other things that our listeners and our audience will be acutely interested in would be, you know, being an entrepreneur isn't a complete bed of roses.
Absolutely
So
not.
can you talk us through the low points, you know, the hardship that you've had to endure to basically get to where you are today, and how you got out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the first iteration, if you like, of I2I, when we had 25 developers and designers in 1999, we went bust in 2000 because of the dot-com crash. Suddenly there was absolutely no work.
No.
And I ended up owing a great deal, which I had taken on as personal debt. But fortunately, the lease that I'd got with the Grosvenor estate, I was allowed to sell. So I increased the lease from 2 years. We've got 2 years to run, and I increased it to a 15-year lease, which became much more valuable, and sold that, which dug me out of the financial hole that I was in. So I was able to start again. So yeah, you know, challenges are thrown at you all the time, and you've just got to look at ways around solving them. You know, if I hadn't taken the risk of taking on a 15-year lease and thinking that nobody would buy it, I was then going to be stuck with a 15-year lease that was going to cost me a small fortune. So you take those risks, and you know, sometimes they pay off. In that case, it paid off. So, you know, having my business partner walk away from a business that we'd spent 18 months building was a real challenge. And suddenly it's all on my shoulders to keep it going. But you find partners and collaborators, and that's really important in life, that you learn to collaborate with people. It's not always about you. It's about the community that you've built and the support network that you've built. So, you know, learn to work with them and learn to be a part of something that's bigger than you.
And that brings us nicely on to where we're at with the Great British Business Expo, because
Indeed.
this surely is the epitome of collaboration, really, if we're going to call it that. And obviously you're bringing together partners, Bright Stars Group being one of them, and many others. So I'm going to now share our screen to show the viewers around the website. It's a really nice website, and how easy it is to get involved. But while we're going through that, Drew, it'd be great for you to talk us through the show and where you're at the moment, and what support you need really for the next 4 weeks to get it moving.
So what we are looking to do is obviously showcase the best of British business. So we're inviting, it's a free to attend event globally again. You know, we're all faced with this pandemic situation, followed pretty swiftly by Brexit. So there are a lot of challenges on everyone's business at the moment. So this is an opportunity for you to showcase what you do. And in the digital booths, you can either create a brand video and showcase that, or you can actually sit in the booth like you would do on a Zoom call and meet people as they drop in to see what it is that you do and how you can best help them. So, you know, we've got a lot of consultants, we've got a lot of digital marketing, comms companies, mental health, obviously, which is a big issue with us all spending most of the time staring at a screen and talking to people virtually. So there's personal development there, and obviously networking. There's a speed networking area on the site, as well as virtual pub rooms that we've set up at the end of the day so that people can meet, have a glass of wine, a glass of beer or whatever, tea or coffee, and chat to each other at the end of the day. But really, as I said, it's an opportunity to showcase your business to a global audience in much the same way as the Great Exhibition was back in 18, whenever it was, at the Crystal Palace. Yeah. We're partnering with some amazing partners, as I mentioned before. You know, we've got the IOD, we've got the Entrepreneurship Week, And we've got some sponsors like Guild, who are a new social network, business social network platform, who are worth checking out. And we'll have some amazing speakers who we're going to start releasing the names at the end of this week. And some brilliant workshops as well.
Very well put together, and you obviously know what you're doing. I suspect you've done thousands of events now to date.
We've done over 70, since March. So that's quite a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fair to say this is a free to attend if you're a delegate. So there's no object to entry, and exhibitor is £100 per booth. Is that correct?
Yeah, £99 plus VAT. And if you want to run a workshop and have a booth, it's £149 VAT. So we want to make it as affordable as possible.
It is, yeah.
And for people to, recommend each other's businesses, reach out to their own networks, and spread the word.
Fabulous. Right, I'm just going to pause quickly because I've got someone at my door. Let's pause. This will be edited, so don't worry. Right. So we're recording again. I mean, it's really, really fascinating for me as a young entrepreneur. Well, not so young anymore, but to listen to your story from having no internet, no social media, no virtual platforms, to now doing everything you're doing. It's really, really inspirational. And I think anyone listening to this or watching will feel the same.
It's funny. You remind me of my daughter. My youngest daughter said to me the other day, the other day when she was young, when she was a little girl, she said, "Daddy, were you born before the internet?" And I said, "Well,
Yeah.
technically no."
Oh, really?
Because ARPANET, the internet is built on ARPANET, which was the military network that the US had.
Yeah.
But the World Wide Web, as you know it, yes, I was born before the internet. And she said, "What did you do?" And I said, "Well, Grandad?" She says, "Yeah." I said, "Grandad was born before television." Well, she just looked at me and she said, "What did anybody do in those days when the world was in black and white?" She thought the old black and white films, that was a representation of the real world, But it has changed dramatically, hasn't it?
That's why I said we're lucky to be in the generation that we're in to see such a revolution.
But it's also it's evolving all the time. When you look now at AR, VR,
I know.
AI, all the impact that's having on society and jobs. And somebody showed something to me 2 days ago, which I don't know if you've seen, and I can't remember the name of the company that does it, but it was an electronic billboard on top of a building. So you think, well, that's nothing new. There are plenty of, electronic billboards. And it was an image of the Starship Enterprise, and it started coming towards you, and then it broke out of the screen in 3D and hung outside the building without you needing any glasses, any 3D glasses or anything. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So,
Wow.
when you look at that and you think about your domestic television and going back to the music industry, you think, well, I'd quite like to watch whatever band you're into. You can actually have them playing in your living room in 3D. Now, that's possible. That's technically possible. So, that there will be continuing revelations in all of this. And in AI, I've got Alexa at home and I can just say, "Good night, Alexa," and she turns all the lights off in the room. These things that we're starting to just take for granted, and the children that are being born now are taking for granted, they will see in their lifetime another exponential curve in technology adoption and changes.
So just to conclude then, Drew, so people know where you're at right now with your business and what you're looking for. How can people get in touch with you? What are you looking for as a business owner?
So people can get in touch with me on email, drew@i2i.com, EYETOEYE.com, or on Twitter @Drew Ellis, on Instagram @Drew Ellis, on LinkedIn. So I'm pretty easy to find. I2I is working with a broad range of clients. We currently advise the Finnish government on a bit like their equivalent of the DIT. So if there's a business, say, based in Helsinki who wants to open an office in London or wants to do business development in the UK, then my client will put me in touch with that business and we'll talk to them about what their aims and ambitions are, and then work on a program of business development for them. We also do all the usual digital stuff that digital agencies do, build websites, do branding. Obviously, I've got, personally, I've got a background in brand development and website development, but we also do social media strategy, digital marketing, anything that's basically screen based. One of the areas that we've recently being asked to do more of is motion graphics. So because people are doing so many talks and so many webinars, they all need an introductory bit of graphics that go at the front and probably go at the end as well. So we develop those for people, animate their logos, just to make it look a little bit more professional than yet another Zoom call.
I think it's amazing. And I mean, now we've heard your story, who's not going to want to work with you, to be honest? just to say, well, what's your black book look like? Well, I'm having dinner with Pink Floyd next week. And I mean, you must have met all these celebrities as well, I guess. They knew who you were.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in recording studios. Was very fortunate to. I tell you a brief story. I took a record sleeve design down to Wembley Arena for Paul McCartney to sign off on, and he kept me waiting for ages, hours, and I could hear them rehearsing in the background, but I was just sitting in a little ante room. And Linda McCartney came in and she said, Andrew, oh my God, I'm really sorry. We've totally forgotten about you. That's terrible. We've got to finish the rehearsal because one of the band has got to go on a school run. But she said, why don't you come in and Paul will, play some music to you. Aww. And I said, that would be fantastic. And so I sat down on a sofa under the mixing desk. I was the only guy other than the crew, and Paul said, "What do you want me to play?" I said, "Are you doing Baby? Can you drive my car?" He says, "Yeah, we're doing that." And they just played. They played 3 or 4 songs for me, which was just magical, as you can imagine. Yeah, not many people can get a private gig like that. So, yeah, lots of fun.
Amazing. Well, we'll do some interviews about those stories, I think, because you must have quite a few to tell. Ones that you can share, ones perhaps you can't. But I think it's been amazing talking to you.
My pleasure.
It's even more so. I know that we are going to partner on stuff with my companies and things. We've already had that discussion, and we're just really excited about the future and working with you. And anything that anyone can do to get involved in the Great British Business Expo, just go to the website. It's www.greatbritishbusinessexpo.co.uk. Get involved, guys. What have you got to lose?
Absolutely.
And now is the time, more so than ever, to collaborate and partner with great people like Drew. Drew, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We look forward to the future working with you, as I'm sure many others do. So, it's been brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks very much.